Hey guys. So hopefully my walkthrough of last week's project was able to help you guys to understand kind of the process that you go through when creating a Node.js um, project with a model view controller. And today I want to go through this week's prove. I'm not going to go through all of it. It's a lot. My biggest piece of advice would be to um, go through the Mongoose tutorial with Max. Max does an amazing job of explaining the process of creating your connection, updating, adding, or deleting from a database, and that's how I was able to complete my section for this week was by going side by side with Max and applying what he was talking about to my project. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. What I thought I could do is just kind of go through my code and kind of explain the process of each function, what they're doing, why I'm doing each thing. Once again, Max is really good about explaining most of these things, but I figured I could kind of give a walkthrough of my own project. So I modified my Star Wars application. It is no longer just to tell about characters, but we're now selling action figures. So let's go to my code real quick, and let's start with my routes. Here's my Pruvo 4 routes. We have quite a few more routes now than we did last time, and most of these are coming from Max tutorial. But something that I wanted to point out to you guys is that we're going to be using just like we did last time, just like we did last week, where we were able to pass the ID in the URL. We're still able to do that. And as you can see, most of the stuff with these IDs, I am modifying a specific product that's found in my database. And something that you can notice too, I'm not going to get too much into my actual application until the very end where I'll go through it. Um, but it's good to note that last time we had an ID, but our ID has changed quite a bit. And this is because this is not a self-defined ID that we're getting from our own JSON. Rather, this is the ID that I'm getting from my database. This is the ID of the Luke Skywalker object. So if we come back here into my Pruvo 4, um, once again, I have various get routes that are set up, but I also have all of these get routes and post routes that perform specific actions with the database. And these are all the functions that are being called. So let's go into my controller, and I'll kind of walk through a few of these with you guys. Um, Once again, we are importing from our model, and that's what's really nice about Mongoose. With our model, it makes it a lot more simple than a lot of other techniques. Um, if we go into our models, and we go to go to the product, it's really simple. We're not doing a whole lot in the model. We're just setting up an object that we can then manipulate, save, update, whatever we want to do inside of our controller. So let's come back to our controller. So get products. Once again, Mongoose is really awesome the way that we can use it. With a find method, we can find everything inside of that product model that we defined in our models. It'll find all the products, and then we can decide what we're going to do with those products. And I'm going to render it to my home page of characters that displays all my characters along with what I want to display. Remember with your res.render that you do want to set up your path um, within your views to be able to get to that EJS. So mine automatically looks into views. I then tell it that I want to look into my prove assignments, and then after looking into my prove assignments, it will then look for my prove04.ejs. And this is a little messy. You guys could separate it a little bit more, separate into prove 1, prove 2, prove 3. I just have all of these lumped together. But it's able to find my prove4.ejs and then render the products to that. I do something a little bit different than what Max does, and this is not expected for this week, but in my project, I like to have an admin sign-in. That way a normal user doesn't have access to modifying, adding, deleting. Um, all the normal user will have access to is adding characters to their cart, and then to ordering from their cart. So I do some validation, and I do that by using my admin model. If we go to my models, and I have a username and a password, and I have hard coded in there right now a username and a password that can then be there verified. Um, so what I can do is I can use the find one method, and I can say what variable I want to find, and then I'm going to say the name or the value that I'm looking for in there. So I'm going to look for, I'm going to look inside my database for the username variable, and then I'm looking for that variable with a defined um, value. So in my case, I set up a hard-coded username of admin. So when the user in their sign-in submits username with admin, it will then go into the database looking in username, looking for that admin. And then I'm saying that once we find that, if the passwords match that they gave that's stored in the database, then we will go to my admin's homepage. Otherwise, we will go back to the sign-in page, and then I have a variable called error that I'm saying is true, and if error is true, then I will display an error message to the user telling them that they have invalid credentials. Once again, this is not necessary. This is something that I did to kind of separate my admin from the user, and that's just made it a little bit easier for me. And I'm not going to go through all of these. Like I said, with most of these, you can see how easy Mongoose makes it for us to be able to find items in our database. By using find by ID, all we have to do is pass in the ID of that item that we're looking for. This is coming once again from us sending it in the URL, and then grabbing it using the rec.params.id, because that's the name that I gave it. Back in our routes, if we come back here, I gave it the name ID. We come back into here, I'm able to get it from params using that ID. I can then search for that item, and then I can render the page that I want to render. So in this case, the user is selecting a action figure, Luke Skywalker, whatever it may be, and then we're going to render the details page for that item. Now, a lot of these just kind of have to do with that. We have our .find, we have our find by ID and remove. This is going to be an admin function where the admin can go in and remove an item from the products list. They also have the ability to edit products, add products, and so on. Is there anything else I want to show you guys? I don't think so. Get cart is going to be for the user. And Max goes over this really well. Basically, we're able to, through the request, gain access to the user that we created in our user model, and then populate it according to the cart items that have been added to that user. Now, this looks like a lot, and it would be way too much for me to go over everything. But I hope that kind of gives you an idea of how you can be using Mongoose to be able to access data from your database and display it to the user, remove from the database, update the database. And once again, like I said before, I'm only going through this very briefly, but Max does an amazing job of going through all of these options in detail and explaining how it's done. What I would advise for you to do is that while you're going through this project, don't try and do everything at once and then check it, but be watching his clips, and then as he's doing things, do them yourselves and then make sure that these work for your application. That's exactly what I did. I started with displaying my objects, then I added the functionality to add products, then edit, then delete, then add to cart, then add to orders. And by doing it in those small steps, I was able to go through his videos and apply those things while making sure that my application was working. And because I did it this way, it was much easier and it went by a lot faster, and I didn't have as many errors as if I had tried to do everything all at once. Um, so now, once again, I know that this is a lot, um, and it takes a bit of effort this week to be able to get this proof done. But like I said, if you follow with Mac's instructions on how to do everything, then you will totally be set and it'll be awesome. This is one of the big pushes for our proofs to be able to get your e-commerce site set up. And once you do that, it'll be a lot easier to work out the other logic of the things that you need to be doing with your e-commerce website. I hope this was helpful. If you guys need any help, Andrew and I are always willing to hop on and help out and be able to get you guys through this. Thanks for watching.